Hello and a very warm welcome to yet another delightful edition of the program Cac Weekly, a weekly program that keeps you abreast on the activities and the achievements of the Corporate Affairs Commission. I am Amina Jibril. Now coming up, CAC takes an in-depth look at name approvals as Registrar General interacts with approving officers. Issued share capital in place of authorized share capital comes under searchlight, and CAC enlightens workers on benefits of its upgraded health insurance scheme. We'll be right back after this break. Just stay with us. And welcome back. We begin today with availability or name search. Name search or name availability is the first stage of incorporating a company. It is done to see if a proposed company name is too similar to a name already in the Commission's database. No one is allowed to register a company name that is identical to one that already exists. However, the name search, which is done for just 500 naira, does not guarantee that the name will be available for registration. If a proposed name is approved, it can be reserved for up to 2 months in the first instance. Now, in its continued bid to fine-tune its processes, the Corporate Affairs Commission held an interactive session with name approving officers. Declaring the event open, the Registrar General and CEO of the CAC, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, charged the participants to broaden their horizon in order to further minimize cases of wrong name approvals or denials. Alhaji Garba Abubakar stated that emerging developments have made their schedule become increasingly complex, hence the need for them to read more and consult widely to avoid recording avoidable mistakes capable of painting the Commission in a bad light. The Registrar General also highlighted many instances where some customers attempted to surreptitiously use names of prominent personalities or widely acclaimed local and international brands to register companies in the Commission, but were thwarted due to what he called the diligence instituted by the CAC. He therefore admonished name-approving officers to frequently brainstorm for well-informed decisions, stressing that what some classrooms could not offer, such sessions were the best fora to resolve lingering issues. He therefore used the forum to appreciate their unquantifiable sacrifices, especially by giving results to customers even on weekends, and enjoyed them to sustain the tempo.
Numerous, maybe 1, 2, 3, that's the name of it, until you come forward to change. So we started asking our lawyers that are filing to you shouldn't just end with directing the company. If they fail to change within a particular time, some of them have gone as far as those that file the application from their own. They go to court and ask the court to register the company. How do you register? A company that has existing obligations, you're not even struck off. They say to register. How do you register? It's not a business name that you can cancel. So these are some of the issues. And I hope as we move along. Initially we wanted to capture the data of all business names that are not in the system. But upon reflection we realize that we'll spend a lot of resources. And in truth, most of these businesses are not operating. Some of the owners have died. The children are not interested. Some don't even know that their parents are businesses. So if you spend money and effort updating, you have to spend another money to strike it off. So we said, okay, let's just anybody that has a business and is still interested, let him come. When he comes forward, then we'll update his own. Because if you count the numbers, what we have in the database is not up 40% of the registered events we have in the commission. Even here in the area, we have a lot that are not in the database. A lot. So, but we may not capture everything, but we need to have a record. maybe in an Excel sheet, step by step. Because if somebody comes forward, sometimes to trace the state that has that record is always challenging. So Ambrose, you need to take note. This should be our next project. States, because a lot of people don't have much work. We have to create a template. Let them enter the name, the registration number, maybe the address in Excel. At least we have a central storage that we can query. If anybody comes and wanted to do any change or update, we know the state that has the record. We can always ask them to send it or update. So I think that's the best way to do it.
Now, participants sought to know more on the Commission's one-word rule, and the Registrar General was spot on with a response.
What actually bothers my mind throughout being in availability, I would want to understand really what the Commission has as a definition of one-word rule. You know, I want us to come to that I want to know what the Commission says about it.
Of so many reasons. One, we were almost exhausting all the available options on names by our insistence on 2 words. Because with the 2 words rule, almost every name proposed was already taken. Secondly, the insistence on 2 words sometimes doesn't make sense, because a word can make a distinction, a clear distinction, and the 2 companies can coexist without any problem. So because of that, we decided to relax the rule and introduce 1 word. So that if the word difference is distinctive, that name should be allowed. I have mentioned the issue of generic. The 1 word is not supposed to apply to generic words, and it's not supposed to apply to companies that are engaged in particular activity or same line of activity. Because if you take, for example, H-Medics, we all know H-Medics. It's a well-known brand in Abuja. To me, even if somebody wants to register H-Medics construction, I will insist that he may try to pass off a brand name. Because a brand like that is likely having a trademark, that name. So we have always said it. Brands that are known, that have achieved notoriety, and international brands, maybe Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Virgin Atlantic, or British Airways. Somebody cannot just walk to CAC and say, I want to register a name with Coca-Cola. So that's actually, these are supposed to be the areas of distinction. So 1 word will apply to the extent that it's clearly distinctive. It's not referring to the same trade, profession, or sector.
Participants at the session, who were drawn from the head office and some state offices of the Commission, sum up their feelings on the interactive session.
The experience is wonderful. It's one of those platforms present management is exploring to deepen the understanding of the process of availability approval, and it is going to continue like this. Keep our staff abreast of emerging developments concerning name approvals.
The session has been quite rewarding. We've learned a lot of things, and more light has been thrown into certain words that was, to me, controversial or confusing. So this has, to me, it has improved my knowledge or given me more knowledge on approval and on approving names, and I'll be able to teach other people equally.
The program is superb, it's very interesting, it's all encompassing, and the registrar has said it all. The registrar is somebody that has knowledge, knowledgeable is the activities of the corporate affairs commissions. So he has said it all, and the people has participated actively, and they're very, very interested, and that's very encouraging.
Okay, the training or the interactive session was basically on how to minimize mistakes that we make, especially from approving officers from the first level of registration. And it was indeed a very refreshing session. We learned a lot, and we intend to act on what we've learned so far.
Say a big thank you to the Registrar General for this session. It has helped us with some of the issues that we've been having over time, especially when it has to do with name reservations. So most of those issues have been sorted out today. So we look forward to doing our job better and satisfying our customers.
In fact, the training is well overdue. We have discussed a lot of things with the Chief Executive. We interacted with our colleagues on the way on how to move the commission forward, particularly on name approvals.
Training was a very successful one. We had a successful interaction with the Director General of Corporate Affairs Commission. In fact, it was very, very impactful. We benefited a lot from him, and he has shown us the leeway on how to go about approval and registration of names, particularly approval officers who are doing AV approvals. Some of the challenges we are ironing out today, and going forward, we'll do better.
We now move on to health matters. Now, according to the World Health Organization, WHO Healthy Workplace Framework, the 1985 Occupational Health Services Convention, approved by the International Labour Organization, calls on employers and member states to establish occupational health services for all workers in the private and public sectors. These services would include surveillance of hazardous situations in the environment, surveillance of worker health, advice and promotion related to worker health, including occupational hygiene and ergonomics, first aid and emergency health services, and vocational rehabilitation. It is in realization of this objective that the CAC offers periodic health talk and on-the-spot clinic for its workforce. Now, during the week under review, the Commission held a 3-day enlightenment forum on its health insurance scheme. Featured prominently at the forum were the benefits and extent of the scheme's coverage. It also provided an opportunity for staff to raise questions on grey areas for on-the-spot resolution. During the forum, which was held on the 25th to 28th of May 2021, staff were afforded the opportunity to instantly check, amongst others, their blood sugar level, blood pressure, and blood mass index. Now from health matters, we go back to company incorporation as we take a look at issued share capital in place of authorized share capital. Now, the concept of authorized share capital was replaced with issued share capital in sections 27, subsection 2, 1 to 4 of CAMA 2020. Now, Mr. Tolulope Adiola Shonaike, the Assistant Director, Registry Department, helps us understand what the new concept is all about. Do enjoy watching.
Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you, Vedina, for having me.
Okay. Today we're looking at the issued, share capital replacing the authorized share capital. Before now, when we registered some years back, they say authorized share of 1 million, 1 naira per share capital, and then out of the 1 million, somebody has to take for like 400, another person takes 300, another person takes 300. So you sum it up to, now we understand under CAMA 2020,
Right.
That's no longer, necessary. So we're now dealing with issued share capital rather than authorized share capital. Help us break it down. Help us understand the departure and what, it's all about.
Okay. Under the 1990 Act, what companies were allowed to do, they were allowed to create shares, and determine the upper limit of the number of shares that can be issued for the purpose of raising capital for the company. There are other means of raising capital. For the purpose of raising capital through equity, through shares, the company could determine the maximum limit of shares that the company was allowed to issue until such maximum limit is increased or reduced, however the case may be. What the law required at that point in terms of issue was that not minding what your authorized share capital is, right? You were required to issue at least 25%. So at incorporation, the subscribers, those coming together to form the company, were under obligation to take up at least 25%. So in the case of a 10 million naira share capital company, you created shares of 10 million naira, divided into 10 million shares of 1 naira each. But the subscribers must, amongst themselves, take up at least 2.5 million naira capital. Now, at any point in the life of the company, you are also expected to have at least 2.5 million naira of that 10 million, if not increased, taken up at any time. When you come to increase, together with the increase, the new share capital, you must still issue at least 25%. But that is not the case now. The case now is that you are not allowed to create shares more than you are taking up at a time.
Okay.
So what you look at now, the emphasis is no longer on authorized share capital, which allows you to have excess beyond your issue. What the law now emphasizes is issued share capital. So all the shares you create must be issued at any time. So you create your shares as you need them per time. So in that case of a 10 million naira share capital company, if what you need issued at this time is 2.5 million shares, right? Then what you should create at this time and issue should be the 2.5 million naira shares. So that is the departure, that is the difference. You are no longer allowed to create more than you are issuing at any particular time.
Okay.
So you don't bank shares, you don't have allowance for unissued shares anymore.
Now tell us some of the advantages of this issued share capital
Okay,
as against the authorized share capital. Used to, yeah.
Good. Like I said earlier, authorized share capital, the concept of authorized share capital presupposes that a company can determine that we can issue this number of shares for the purpose of raising capital, right? But the law does not require you to issue all that under the 1990 Act. All you were required to issue was just 25%, which is 250,000 in the case of a 1 million naira share capital, right? So what the experience you would have there would be that, okay, let's use the example of 10 million share capital company, right? And then the law requires you to issue 25%, which would be 2.5 million. Now, if you create authorized 10 million shares capital, right, you are paying stamp duties on 10 million. You are paying filing fees to CAC on 10 million naira share capital.
That is not needed.
Now, all you need at that time is 2.5. So why are you front-loading costs? Why are you paying for what you do not need? You know, for each, in the case of stamp duties, what you'll be paying will be 0.075%. Okay. So when you're talking
and
about...
how much is that? 0.5%?
Yes.
To the layman.
For a 10 million naira share capital, yes. That will mean 7,500 naira per million. Multiply that by 10, that's 75,000 naira, right? For filing fee with CAC, because we don't have fractions, okay, it's either a million or nothing. So if you have 1 million, 1 naira, that means 2 million. Oh. So for each million you are paying, for the first million, 10,000 naira, subsequent millions up until 500 million, 5,000 naira per million. So in the case of this 10 million naira capital, you'll be paying 10,000 naira plus 55,000 naira. You don't need all
plus
of that.
Another 70,000. That's 125.
For 75.
But 130.
Fine. Now, if you were to stay with your 2.5 that you require, thank you. For CAC, you would only be paying, since there's no fraction of a million, you'll be paying 10,000, 5,000, 5,000, you'll be paying 20,000 instead of the 55,000. So you have knocked off 35,000. Okay. For stamp duties, instead of the 75,000 you are paying, you'll be paying 7.5, 50 for 2 million. Then half of 7.5, which is 3,750. Add it to 50 million, 18,750 for your 2.5. 18,750 from 75,000. That's about 50 something, 60. Yeah, 50 something.
50, about 52.
About 52,000.
Yeah, yes.
Add your 52,000 to your 35,000. That's about 77,000. If you plow that back into starting your business, it's something. But that is cost that you have incurred unnecessarily. So it prevents front loading of costs.
Okay.
Then it also
especially when we're talking about ease of doing business and
yes, you know. And then you have this our experience quarrels sometimes between shareholders and directors challenging registration of some increases and some allotment of shares, the shareholders will tell you that they were not aware. No meeting was called. Meanwhile, the law says that to allot shares, it's the company that has the authority, not the directors. The company, when you say company, that means members are general meeting, shareholders are general meeting. Shareholders can delegate this power to the directors. But until such powers are delegated, those powers reside in the members. So the shareholders must be called into a meeting where they will now decide how do we want to divide or distribute the shares. So now take the case of that company with 10 million naira share capital, right? And then it issues 2.5 million naira. It has 7.5 million naira of its authorized share capital unissued, right? And yet, the company approaches CAC purportedly to issue the 7.5 million. And you see the signatures are regular. Everything, documentation is perfect. And CAC registers it. Tomorrow, the shareholders come and say, we were not part of this transaction. We were never informed. No meeting was called. So there we're talking about fraud. We've had several like that have been reported. There are several in court because when you talk about fraud, this is not a criminal element. It has to go to the law courts to do. So you have several like that. Now, where did they get the opportunity? To commit a crime, there must be motive, there must be opportunity, there must be capacity, right? So even though the fraudulent people have the motive, they have the capacity, if the opportunity is not there, they cannot commit the crime.
Yes.
They were able to do that because they were unissued shares. But now that you won't have unissued shares anymore, nobody can come and allot shares that do not exist. You must first create them. And to do that, you must call the members to a meeting. You understand? And as they are creating it, you are allotting it. So everybody knows what is going.
Okay.
And then the last point on it, I mean, that I would like to make is that let's break this into mathematics. Because when investors put money down, they expect returns on investment.
Okay.
And they want the most returns they can get. It is the duty of the directors to run the company in such a way that maximum returns gets back to the shareholders.
Yeah, of course.
You know. So you must enhance shareholder value from time to time. Now, if, let's take the example of this 10 million naira share capital company. If all the company needs to use at that moment for business to optimize returns is 2.5 million naira. If you put 2.5 million to it, right, and what you get back is maybe 20 million in profit for 2.5 million investment. And because the market is so saturated, if you put any more amount than that 2 million, you see will not get more than 20 million in return. Now imagine that you got 20 million in return. So
that's bad news for investors.
The more people, the more people you have sharing the pie, the less that goes to each person. That is the case here. So if you have 2.5 million naira shares among 5 people, right, pursuing 20 million, by the time you divide that, the return to each person will be 8 naira per share, right, in case of profit, dividends. But when you have 10 million pursuing that same 20 million, what you get back to each share is 2 naira. So the return on investment, where you overcapitalize, is less. Investors don't like that. Far less. That's not attractive. That's not appealing. So those are reasons why you may not find authorized share capital attractive. Even though the argument for it is that, look, we always have these shares there so that immediately we see opportunity to bring in an investor, to add value money to investment, we can just issue. But again, even if you issue that, you must still come to the CAC to register it.
Okay.
So what the law is saying is that don't worry about banking the shares. When they come, as you just come to the CAC, allot these shares, come to the CAC.
Some people will say, is it a system of pay as you go?
Well, something like that. Something like that. Really, it's something like that. Pay as you go.
Yeah.
So don't just use money that you don't need. Right? As you go, as you need it, pay. That's the whole concept.
So what is the most challenging part of this whole process?
I think, again, it's because the same attitude I would say that because most companies have not found a need to do it. So they are not doing it willingly and voluntarily yet. But because you find that the response has not been so high, right? But we know that in time, as the deadline approaches, a lot of them will come and do it. A lot of them will come and do it. Because not doing it, the penalty is huge, is high. The penalty is against the company and every director of the company.
Mr. Logwa, I do know that when it comes to shares, it's something that we need to harp on over and over so that people need to understand, issued, unissued, and
Yes,
all of
yes,
that, and the
yes.
deadline. You know, some people, they wait until 31st before they say they didn't even hear it in the first place.
Yes,
So it's an
yes.
area we need to have more and more. Mr. Tolu Kweshonaiko, Assistant Director, Registry Department, thank you very much indeed for your
Thank
time.
you, Medina. It's always a pleasure to be on the program.
All right.
And on that, we come to a wrap on this week's edition of the program, CAC Weekly. We do hope you enjoyed watching. Now, for comments and inquiries, please take advantage of our social media handles and our helplines. Remember, on Twitter, it is at CAC Nigeria 1. On Instagram and Facebook, it is Corporate Affairs Commission. Our email is cservice@cac.gov.ng. You could visit our website on www.cac.gov.ng. And you could also reach us via our helplines on the numbers 081-822-99016 or 081-822-98971. 090-874-01598 or 090-874-01599 and 090-874-01600. Do join us next week for another interesting edition of the program. Same time, same station. From me, Amina Jabril, and the whole team. It is bye for now.